Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Brian, welcome to 10,000 Miles. How are you today?
Great to be here.
Good. It's nice to see you. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to schedule this guy, but
hey, Vic, we have the same T-shirt, man.
Yeah, we do. We got the memo this morning. Missy sent out the memo that said, "Hey, make sure we got black T-shirts going." So it's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
So I have come to meet Brian via the beautiful internet in the sky. Via LinkedIn and I am always out there looking for people who have built businesses and entrepreneurs and people with a story. And it just so happens Brian was looking to tell his story, is maybe talk about a new venture that he's working on. So we had, a couple, 2, 3, 15 minutes together and I had a nice conversation. And so here he is on the call, or on the episode, I should say. Brian has had an interesting background. He's built a company, sold it, started another company, respectively Sageworks and now LiveSwitch. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, I guess the best way to start, I'm horrible at intros, just to be honest, but I've been an entrepreneur since I've been a kid, and that's my calling card. I mean, literally 8 to 10 years old, and I did landscaping, lawn cutting. I did go to college. I paid my way through. I'll keep it super short. And, once I went to business school, I knew that, going the B school route and being a consultant or iBanker wasn't for me, Vic. And so I went from sort of always running businesses when I was a kid to starting a coin laundromat chain in my 20s.
That's awesome.
And I built that up. And then I used that money to start Sageworks, which was my big play for 20 years. And I sold that company in 2018 to AKKR. And they're owned by AKKR as well as Carlyle now. So, that was the big success story. So that's a little bit of an intro.
Great. Hey, can you tell the audience, for those who might not know, what Sageworks started out to be, what they did? And then eventually, sort of where it went and where you took the company?
Yeah. I hope you have 3 hours.
All right, we got plenty of time. Take your time.
Yeah. So we started, I recognized that entrepreneurs can run their businesses, but they can't always understand their financial statements. So with a buddy of mine, Sarah Torville, I developed an expert system that converts financial numbers into plain language so that people running their businesses would be able to understand what's going on in their business. And that was a 2-year project with Sarah to really get that out to market, Vic. There's a long sordid tail on it, but it was really truly early AI. It really was. And it works and it's being used. I had dinner with the vice president of Abrigo on Friday, and it's still used all through the world. It's called Profit Sense. So it's at market, and I think they've generated hundreds of millions of reports from it. But that's how the company started. Now where we ended up, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea to start and to build a product like that, or a platform that did that?
Right. Well, I started in a bank right out of college. I lasted there about 9 months, and I think they were going to fire. I know they were going to fire me if I didn't quit, and I beat them to the punch. So when I was at the bank, I was 22 years old, and I would meet with these people called entrepreneurs, and they would come in, and I liked these people. They came in with the khakis and the shirt, and I'm in a tie up to my neck and being choked, and I had always been an entrepreneur. And they would come into the bank and they would present their financial stuff. Vic, and bottom line, and real super bright guys, but really not always aware of how to read their financial statements. And so that was like a ding on my head. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And what happens with ideas, Vic, is they get in your head and they just go around and you gather more and more empirical information, and that becomes a business idea. But the long and short of it is I did a little consulting after I got out of business school 5 or 6 years later. And again, I had worked with companies that, they were good operators, but they did not know how to read their financial statements and, more importantly, take action. And I remember one guy who I won't name, I have a lot of regard for him. I was the CEO of a pharmaceutical CRO company, super bright dude. And his name's Art. And built up this great company. And he's a scientist, like the world-class scientist dude. I mean, super bright. And he comes into my office. I was his part-time CFO. And he comes in and he says, what do these financial numbers mean? I was like, and that was the light bulb in 1997 for
Wow,
Sageworks. Because I'm
that's
like,
great.
holy crow, I've been seeing this for 10 years that people can't understand their financial statements. And then I got together with my buddy Sarah Torville, who was a database developer for Unisys, and the rest is history. And we just started tooling around and, hey, how can we make this thing work? How do we make it easy to understand, right? And also make it meaningful. Like, I got my report, how do I make my business better? And then, then I was about 2 years of developing that product. It was hard. It was very complicated.
At its peak, how many people were in Sageworks?
Well, we had about 400 or so.
Okay.
Roughly, plus or minus a little bit, yeah.
For those listening, I knew the answer to that, and it was a baited question, because it's a perfect entrance to, hey, here's Brian and his partner, and they're starting this company, and there's nobody, right? There's nobody. Yep. Tell us a little bit about the journey of growing this business.
Yeah.
Finding the right talent, hiring people, take it wherever you want it, but there's so much value in this story for people to hear. Because I think the one thing you said that I want you to build on here is, like, people have all these ideas in their head, and it's not only about what's coming in and out of the financials, but entrepreneurs of themselves have all these great ideas, but often don't connect what to do to execute to get it done.
Yeah.
Clearly, having built a company of 400 people, you were executing. So take us a little bit on that road. Well, what was it like bringing people on?
Let me say this, it's like I like podcasts because we can do this thing called talking, and we can actually have a conversation, not like TV where it's like you got 3 points to make and you got 3 minutes. And I like it. We have some breathing room, right?
Absolutely.
We're looking for nuggets. So here's one for you, for everybody listening to this. I ran that company for 20 years, almost to the day, 20 years. And 99% of the value of that company was accrued in the last 5 or 6 years. Think of that.
Wow.
Now, by the way, that's not hyperbole. That's the truth. 20 years of running a company, and the value was accrued in the last 5 or 6 years.
Amazing.
So, look, this, right? There's struggles in there, things you do wrong. We went out to market with ProfitSense, great market for the accountants, but then our renewal rate wasn't where it needed to be, so we shifted to banks. But there's so many pivots. But I guess let me just be a bumper sticker here. Just for the people listening to this, you got to understand that some people are lucky, or maybe they're smarter than I am. They probably are. Is they come out with the product, they got the right product at the right time, and it takes off. That's about 0.0001% of entrepreneurs. Most of us.
Yeah. And you're being generous.
Yeah. We get out, just like LiveSwitch, what we're going through right now, by the way, is a different company, but just like LiveSwitch. But basically, you introduce the product, and then you think you know the market, and you're wrong. The vector's off, right? And then you start shifting into where the market is. So you got to shift to the market and the product. And I don't know any entrepreneur who hasn't done that. So it's, so our story is atypical in that we built a, pretty decent sized company, which is, a big outfit now. But really there were a lot of struggles, a lot of trial and error.
Do you recall a time where you had to make one of those pivotal decisions? Because that's, first of all, and man, we could talk for 3 hours about 20-year company and you getting all your growth in the last 5, because it reminds me of a what got you here ain't going to get you there kind of deal. Did you come across, what were some of the pivotal things that you had to, key decisions you had to make to break through to another spot?
Great question. So we were in the CPA market for about 10 years, and we were growing 100% 100, 200%, 100. What we found, and I don't know, maybe these guys have figured this out, Vic, but basically we found that we couldn't move our true renewal rate above 70%. So if you do the math on it, it's really fascinating, a little depressing, but fascinating. when we got to about 10 million in revenue, which is, a decent sized company,
Yep.
what we found with that 70% renewal rate is that we added customers at the same rate that we lost customers. Murphy's Law, I don't know what it is. Maybe I was bad in a previous life. It was unbelievable, right? And so that was like, woof, this is not a company that can be a multi-$100 million company. We're not going to make it. And that was, I started the company in 98. That revelation was 2007 or 8,
Okay.
10 years into the business. And I just woke up one day and I'm like, hey, this stuff ain't working. Let's go over to the banks, and the rest is history. That's when we started to really pick up, and the products got much stickier once we got into credit analysis. But it's a crazy thing. We licensed in 2001 to Intuit, and we were working with CCH and Creative Solutions out of Thompson. Citibank, the small bank called Citibank, was a customer.
Yeah.
But those were false positives, Vic. They were false positives, meaning.
Explain that.
Yeah. Meaning it looked great on the surface. You know what I mean? The car looked great and, it was waxed and, the windshield wipers and all that, but the car wouldn't run long. Meaning those were good revenue things that were not repeatable. And the key to building any tech company, a SaaS company, obviously, is, growing your sales with a very strong renewal rate. And I guess, again, I keep in mind, I know this is a conversation, but I want to get.
Yeah, no. It's more you than me. I need to keep you at 65% of the dialogue at a minimum.
Okay.
This is about you and your story. Brian, they hear me every week, so it's about you.
I get it. But what I'm trying to get to is that sometimes you think you got some, it's the biggest mistakes that I've made in life is when I thought I was 100% right. Wow. I have found.
Boy, that's interesting.
Yeah. I found, and this is true, even talking to entrepreneurs like you and being here, right? There's an inverse relationship for me personally between my experience and my confidence. When I was in my 20s or 30s, I thought I knew everything, and you make a lot of mistakes. And so as I get more experience, I'm like, yeah, what you're saying is kind of right, but not totally. And the point is that at Sageworks, we had the economy market. We were growing, Vic. We raised some money, okay? And that was terrific. But there was a thing inside of there where we couldn't move that renewal rate. And we didn't really know it till 2005 or 6. And that was kind of depressing. It's
a lot of churn. A couple of things come to mind there. One is I'm 8 years in the industry I'm in. I was a corporate wrangler, prior to that. And I remember being at one of the very first events, 1,600 people. It was in Napa. It was called Channel Connect. It was put on by Intelisys at the time. And they invited some folks up on stage to talk about their experience in growing their small business, because there are all these entrepreneurs in there that are facing off with customers on behalf of the ecosystem. And this one guy got up on stage and he said, I have no problem selling new business. I am great at it. But my customers are flying out the back door at a rate that I can't keep up with. He said, so my renewal rate and my ability to keep them, because, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. He just knew sell, didn't know support.
Yeah.
Didn't know operations. And so I watched that guy pivot at that moment. He had this big realization. He sought some counsel, figure out how, hey, if I got the selling thing down, I got to bring other people on around me that know how to handle the operation side, and they don't sell.
Yeah.
And when I say when you're a hammer and everything's a nail, a lot of people in this business come from, the high value prop of if you sell, you're worthy. And if you're not, you're a support person. And, you cap out. There aren't really, there's not much room after that.
Yeah.
Well, that individual absolutely learned and went from probably 35+% leakage to, 30, 25, 20. It took a few years, but finally when I caught up with him again, I remained friends with him. But when a topic came up about 2.5 years later, he's like, problem's gone.
Really?
I don't lose customers anymore. Now, on the
You
other
know,
side of that,
yeah, go ahead.
our company, we don't lose customers
Yeah,
because it was seeded in service and investments were made there 24 years ago.
I see.
We can still improve big time. I mean, we still have a lot of opportunity in
Right,
account coverage and account management. We are far from perfect,
right.
but still entrepreneurs come across different challenges, different spots.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go in a different direction, by the way.
Okay.
Really interesting, right? I thought that fork was going to be different. One of the greatest experiences I had at Sageworks was back in 2001. We licensed our technology and we shipped with them. It was on their disk in the day. It was disks,
Yeah.
with Intuit, with QuickBooks, and we shipped Profit Sense with QuickBooks. I mean, it was huge. It's like something you read about. Like we got like 3 or 4 employees, and we licensed into it, and that was incredible. I think they paid us like $250K a year. It was very early. That was a ton of money, and it was great credibility for us, Vic. But that was not the best part of that experience. The best part of that experience is because I was the titular head of my organization, I interfaced with the guys at Intuit at a very high level. I mean, like the highest level. And I learned more in 2 or 3 years working with them about customer service support, knowing your customer, focus groups. That's where I thought you were going. And this is what I'd say with regard to retention. And really, really interesting take that, fork that you made. But with regard to retention, the key is getting to your customer, finding out what they like, finding out what they don't like, listening incredibly carefully. That's what I learned at Intuit. And I don't know if there would be a Sageworks without my experience at Intuit, because
That's
they're,
interesting.
they're world class at the customer. And there's not a company on the planet who cannot do better with regard to customer service and support. We can always get better at that. And that's my mantra here at LiveSwitch: customer, 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 customer. And one last thing on that is we live in the age of video games. LiveSwitch is a video company. We do video, and we do phone, and we do. When I talk about customers, I'm talking about almost, I don't care what business you're running, Vic. You got to go meet with the customer, belly to belly, as the Japanese say, and
Yep.
find out what's in their heart and their soul. Why did they buy their product? How do they tick? I do this a couple times a year. I did it at Sageworks, and I go cross country, and we're selling at LiveSwitch to home service businesses. These are like the painters, the landscapers, the window washer. And I am going out to them to meet with them, watch them use our product, get to know them. Hey, if they want me to paint a shingle or whatever, I'm happy to do it. But the importance is getting close to that customer.
Yeah.
And very few companies do that excellently. So that's my story around
No, and it's interesting, and because I've delivered a lot of software working in an enterprise, and I had a great experience when I was a CIO at a company called Cash America, and we had a platform. It was a pawn shop company that also had Second Life retail.
Right.
So it was a mix of micro lending and retail sales, and we had a single platform that did that. It was custom built, and we would roll features out. And to your point about knowing your customer, I recall a time where one of the things people were asking for was the associates were asking for a way to split commission in the platform. Hey, Vic's here on Monday, right?
Yeah.
And if Vic sells something to Bob, Vic could put himself in. Bob was here, and I get commission for that. But if Vic's here on Monday and spent an hour with me,
right,
showing me about this product, giving me a price, locking me in, but that person said, well, I got to come back tomorrow and it's my day off, but Brian's there.
Yeah.
I want to give Brian a heads up and say, hey, Brian, if this guy comes back and you close it, we should split that commission because this person is coming in. And Brian was like, hey, you got me a live one. This is great. Right. And so we built in a way to split that commission. Segment 1. Segment 2 was our customers wanted the ability to see the inventory. In pawn shops, part of the experience was bouncing from shop to shop and seeing the gold that you might find. It was kind of like finding the needle in the haystack. Yeah. You come up with these nuggets. But given the proximity, there were 1,000 shops across the country. Some of them were all very drivable. And who the heck wanted to drive from place to place to place? Right. So we created a mobile app. And the mobile app would allow customers to go on and type in guitars and get a whole list and then put it in a geo area. Well, here's the thing, which is why meeting with the customers is vital. And I've told the story so many times, but I love it. I go out to Vegas and we're doing some shop tours and seeing, how the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
And a guy comes up to me and says, "Hey man, I want to really thank you for what you put together. Man, the ability to split commission and the ability to go find product across other sites, because these the POS systems were locally installed systems that batch reported at night. Okay, so one shop didn't know what was going on next shop at all. The top of house knew, but the rest didn't know." He goes, "Yeah, that was genius the way you put that together." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh yeah, if I have a customer that walks in and says, I need a 10 horsepower generator, gas generator, do you have one?"
Right.
I had no way of knowing there was one a mile down the road.
Down the street, yeah.
I go in the app by myself on this phone. I find one. Yeah. I send them 2 miles down the road and we split the commission. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, we did not intend for that design to happen.
Right.
This is, you get the software in the hands of the people that use it day to day. Yeah. And you learn how they use it, want to use it, and think about it completely differently than you do when you're in this little cocoon designing, thinking to know what everybody wants.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Amazing.
Yeah, those are called eureka moments.
Yeah.
And you do it, you trial and error, you talk to customers, you're pivoting, and then at some point you get this eureka moment like, wow, there's something here, and you go that way. But you always have to be really watching that. Yeah. And it's interesting in that case, your customer was not the end customer, but the sales associates. And
exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. Yeah. Hey, you mentioned something. You said you took on some money.
Yeah.
How important was that to the growth of your company?
Yes. Not very.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I had this is a long tale. I'll keep it short.
No, take it all the way.
I am not great at raising money, especially from the VC guys and the PE guys. It's a different world that I'm from. Like, to me, because I had been an entrepreneur for so long, number one is I want to raise money when I need it and I can deploy it. Number two is I really suck at doing PowerPoint presentations. I'm terrible. Like, there are people who are magic at it. They get in and this and that. None of the numbers add up, but man, they sound great. They should be politicians. And I was always like, you know what? Hey, listen, you're going to build a multi-billion-dollar company. I wouldn't believe anybody who has that in a PowerPoint. The truth is, we get in the market, we wedge in, right? And we discover, and then we find that fountain of gold. But we don't just put that in a PowerPoint. So I wasn't great at it, and I remember. I'm going to tell you a story about this. It's more interesting.
Yeah, tell me.
So I come out of coin laundromats, and I got a little pile of money there for my next business, Sageworks, but not a lot. And I didn't know anything about tech. I knew that I wanted to develop this AI system, but I didn't know anything about tech. And I went to, they have these local, I forgot, you're the musician guy, guitars. I forgot. I remember our interview. But you go to these local things like in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, Research Triangle Park, these entrepreneurial events. And I ran into these guys called venture capitalists. And I remember I met one, comes out of Duke, and I went to school there. And I go, what do you need to do to start a tech company? Like, what do you need to do? He's a venture guy. I don't know this stuff, Mm-hmm. You need $1 million. You need $1 million. Everybody I talked to was like, you need $1 million. The only problem, I didn't have $1 million. So I'm like, well, can you give me the money? No, we won't give it to you. We're not going to give it to you, but that's what you need. And I'm like, this happened like 4 or 5 times. And I had a business plan with the Sageworks.com. It was 1999. And I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. You know what I mean? And the truth is that these guys, as you know, in the VC world, it's a crapshoot. Most of them, not most of them, they go by the odds. It's the more investments they make, and they get a couple of winners, and they call themselves smart, right? As entrepreneurs, we got to be right on target, else we lose everything. So
Yes.
I go, $1 million. Okay. And I had a conversation with one of these guys. He didn't return my calls after this. I think he thought I was nuts. I said, okay, $1 million. What do you need the $1 million for? He goes, well, you need a software program. I'm like, okay, that's an application. You build an application, all right? And what do you need to do that? Well, you need software code. I'm like, okay. And you need a developer. I'm like, all right. And you also need a software language. In the day, I don't know what they use now, Vic, but it was like C+. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, stop.
People are still that Java, C, Python.
Yeah. So stop. We got $1 million, right? And I said, how much does it cost for C+ to buy that program? $79. I'm like, okay, $1 million minus 79. Literally, this happened. Okay, $1 million minus 79. I'm going to see 999,000. And then, well, yeah, but you need developers. I'm like, okay, well, tell me how much do they cost, right? And that's when I partnered with Sarah. We built what has become, multi-billion-dollar company. I'm telling you, with $23,000.
Yeah. Well, you had somebody with the skills. That's really the difference, right?
But the point, and it's very important, as entrepreneurs, we're listening here, right? We're listening. This is on video, hopefully. We're listening,
right? I got you.
Right? And we're ignoring.
Yeah.
We're listening and we're ignoring. It's very important. Like, let's go a little lower. What do you really need? So what I have found is that over and over and over again in my Inmates to Entrepreneurs program, which has been running for 33 years, is that people complicate the startup process. They make it way more complicated than it needs to be. The MBAs are the worst offenders of that, right? What do you actually need to get started? And we built it was about $23,000. And then we got this little customer called Citibank. True story. I went up to the guys in New York, the big green building in Long Island City, Richard Sable, still a friend. Mm-hmm. And I pitched to them and he's like, tell me about your organization. And I'm like, you're looking at it, man. You know what I mean? And we got him. Richard Sable, crazy. So my point is, when we start a business, anytime I go in, Vic, you're talking to entrepreneurs, and I love entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurs are Americans. Hey, let's go start our own country. Who would do that in 1775?
Yeah.
To fight the British? You're crazy, right? We were founded by entrepreneurs, people seeking freedom. That's what I'm seeking. So whenever I'm talking to anybody, I'm always thinking to myself, I'm listening, but I'm like, yeah, but what do I really need to do? So you're a bit of a skeptic. That actually happened, and we built it organically. Now, I did raise some money once we got Citibank and once we got into it. I raised a little bit of money, but that company was bootstrapped. And by the way, hallelujah. Once we got Citibank and into it, the venture guys come in and say, hey, we'll give you $5 million.
Yeah. They're all coming out now.
Yeah. I don't need $5 million. You know what I mean?
You got two of the biggest logos of the day, if not still, but just amazing. I mean, just talk about preparation meeting opportunity, I suppose, but it was it was remarkable. That's remarkable.
Yeah. And that's how we got started, and the rest is history. But again, if you're listening, you know how, Vic, we try to process everything, and what do you do? And it's an app versus SaaS versus this technology. What's really important to any venture, whether we're starting a country, right, or we're starting a business, or starting a marriage, a family, whatever, is the inside game. I work with at Inmates to Entrepreneurs. I started that 33 years ago with Reverend Harris, helping people out of prison start their own businesses, right? And it's like up here, you got to get your mind right. And you're going to be told, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, this is why I respect and love, Vic, you can probably play guitar better than I can. I don't love that. But I love entrepreneurs because you got to be willing to be humiliated. You got to be willing to go out and get no said to you. And you got to have a resolute desire to make that business successful. You got to listen. But I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I know, all kinds of heirs, billionaires, millionaires, and all the heirs, got them all covered. They have had very common experiences.
Indeed. And the people I speak with here, and as I told you, I spent, almost 20 years. Well, I started as an entrepreneur, I guess, in the music business, working for myself, selling my own soul.
Right.
Came out of that, then found myself working in big companies for near 20 years. In the last 8 years, I've been in the entrepreneurial lane. And, you're singing for your supper.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of no's, and you have to have the thickest skin and be very resilient and have a smile on your face when they tell you not this time.
All right. I have a question for you.
Sure.
You're supposed to ask me, and I have my own answer.
Yeah.
That's underneath my sleeve. I got an answer.
Okay.
How do you teach people? I've been studying this for 40 years. It's fascinating to me. How do you teach people to be resilient and to keep going? And I'll give you my answer.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we talk about it all the time amongst our peer group here. And I'm very intrigued by your answer. But first and foremost, we start the conversation with, and I'm going to take a little bit of time here because I love this topic.
Yeah.
I'm
very serious about this.
I'm very serious about it too. We start with the born and bred conversation. Some people are wired for resiliency and have had some disappointment in their life and have had to come through it and have come out on the other side of it. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can look like a tough childhood. That could look like, maybe being middle class or falling, or being very low and watching somebody around you rise. Can be from death in the family, can be from heartache, can be from some very terrible things.
Right.
People come out of them miraculously for whatever reason because they make a decision to move on. That's number one. When you look at these common things and these, get people's mindsets aligned. And I had a conversation with somebody today around prepping for this mindset. He was having a job interview.
Right.
And I said, "Do you need the dry run?" He said, No, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Right.
And I said, "Okay, then let's get ready to do some reps." He said, "What reps?" I said, "I want you for the 20 minutes before you get on that call or that video with somebody. I want you to bring yourself to a time where you're putting yourself in the times when you were most successful. I want you thinking about when you were in your happiest places, and I don't care if that's with your family or with your friends.
Right.
I want you to think about the projects you delivered that look like the ones you may deliver for this particular company, and the times where you absolutely succeeded in those. And then I want you to breathe deeply while you're doing that. It's called box breathing.
Right.
And I want you to do the reps to prep your state to be in a place of peak performance.
Right.
So that whatever comes on in that call, you've done the preparation to put yourself in that most positive mindset. Mm-hmm. So how do you train it? I think it's much like, for me, my aha moment was I was a 260-pound kid who went down to 190 pounds. And I learned consistency. I learned discipline.
Right.
I learned reps. I knew I didn't lose that amount of weight and get in shape and do those things in a heartbeat. I had to put in the reps day in, day out, run, lift weights, row, ride a bike, eat right, do these things. Discipline, 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 discipline. And I think this mindset purely comes from building discipline. And if you can have discipline, you can apply that discipline to the areas you want to succeed in life.
Right.
At all, when you were at your toughest spot in your business, Brian, were you motivated?
Oh,
maybe, but motivated didn't get you to the next spot. Discipline. I'm going to wake up even though I feel like shit, even though I got told 50 no's, even though my renewal didn't come in, and now I got to sell three more clients because I just lost 2.
I get it.
So listen, this is part of a life journey. I don't have the answer. This is some of the nuggets that I talk about with my friends in peer groups.
Yeah.
I'm interested. You said you have something up your sleeve, and man, I am all ears. I really would love to hear what you say.
Up my sleeve. Here it goes. I'm pulling it out. No sleeves, but I'm pulling it out. I want to go a little lower.
Okay.
To desire, right? The desire to, this is why I'm always fascinated. I meet you. I don't know you. You don't know me. We're getting to know each other, right? Like, I meet people and I never know what's in here. In other words, we got to have the tremendous desire to get that discipline. Mm-hmm. And this is what I call what makes people tick. You know what I mean? Like my background, I overstated a little bit, but we really were economically stressed when I was growing. I mean, no matter anyone's standards, food
Mm-hmm.
stamps, the light being turned off, the gas being turned. I mean, I lived it. I mean, I absolutely lived it. And I think that was, well, I know the stress that created for my parents,
Yep.
tremendous stress. You know, my dad didn't graduate from high school. So, you know, can you imagine? My sister Susan got sick, $15,000 of hospital bills in the day. It was a lot of money.
A lot
My
of
dad
money.
didn't have the money. But what it did, it created a tremendous burning desire to succeed. And that makes me disciplined. But underneath in the cake, right? Underneath that cake, in the center of that cake, what makes that person tick? And it's really hard to know. So what I say is this to people. I say, look, you can go run a coin laundromat. You can go run like a, you know, window washing, but you could do that. If you could probably do that and you get a certain amount of desire. But if you
Yeah.
want to do something big and whatever, you are going to get punched in the face. And you got to know inside of you that you got that resilience. You just got to know that you're going to keep on going. And that is very, very hard to assess that. I've worked with judicially involved people, Vic, for
Mm-hmm.
like 33 years, right? And everybody's like, oh, they're coming out and they're tough and they're resilient. I'm like, no, a lot of them are crushed by their life experiences.
Right.
I've known people come out of great families and great, you know, like in the Cleavers or whatever it used to be in the day,
Yeah.
and very nice, you know, life and mother and father and all that, and they've got resilience. But there's something inside of them that will make them keep going, and you can't
Everybody's
tell.
got a different lever too, right?
Yeah,
What you're describing to me, we discuss as calling, everybody's got a different lever. You got to find it. So one of my good friends is an executive coach. I've known him for 40 years. He's had a great life and career through many different things, but he worked for Tony Robbins for 10 years. And he and I were Robbins geeks for,
right,
the early 90s.
right,
And one of the things Robbins would always say is pain is a much greater motivator than pleasure, right? So if somebody came from very, very humble beginnings or very terrible beginnings and their desire came from not wanting to go back there, and my business partner is one of those guys. He watched the family be poor. He watched the
right,
struggles, and he
right.
just said to himself,
I'm not doing it.
I am not doing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
at all.
right,
Now, my lever is different. I didn't have that upbringing. I certainly didn't have a silver spoon.
right,
I watched periods of my dad losing his job. My mom worked together. They kept the ship just like on the water. We didn't have lavish things. I wore hand-me-downs. In some
right,
cases, I couldn't because I was the fat kid,
right,
right? And my brother was thin. But they raised a great family. My lever came from first experiencing watching somebody who was very successful, a multimillionaire, and recognizing that that person was just a normal person.
yeah,
And so I said, not why me?
yeah,
Immediately at 19,
yeah,
my why too went, why not me?
yeah. Good for you.
Right? Because I just said, well, anything's possible. And, everybody talks about whatever privilege you may have. I had the privilege of having great parents.
Right,
I knew my basement was the twin bed in my
right,
parents' house and a meal.
right.
So I knew that failure didn't mean homeless.
I get it. Yeah,
Failure meant I had a bed, they had a washer and dryer in the basement of the house, and my mom was cooking. It could be pasta, it could be a cheeseburger, it might be some chicken.
yeah,
It wasn't caviar, but that was to me like I was
yeah,
almost ignorant. I just knew this was my safety net. But I knew, Brian, at that moment, I knew that was my
yeah.
advantage.
I get it.
And
Yeah,
I say this all the time. I recognized at 19 that the bed, the meal, and the laundry was my winning ticket
yeah. That's
because I had
interesting.
friends who got kicked out of their house at 18.
Yeah,
You're 18, you're out. Well, I'm going to toughen you up. You're going to be a man.
right.
Go get a job. You're going to be a man. You're out. Or you're going to pay me so much rent that you're going to be working 3 jobs to pay for it.
Yeah,
It was the last of that generation that thought, this is how I raise
I
men.
get that.
right?
Yeah.
But your lever and finding somebody's lever is spot on. And I wish Coach T were on the call right now, because he's got so many examples, and I'm sure through the foundation that you're running, you're finding all these different levers for people.
Yeah.
Some is poverty, some is pain and heartache, some is some real tragic thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And desire and discipline together, I think, is where you're headed. They are the formidable 1-2 punch. They are the
It's
mix.
funny. There's a picture of my sister Susan in my living room here, and and I don't think about this. I'm really good. I have to. And they say this about people who are resilient: move forward, move forward, and you just get conditioned to do it. But I was looking at her picture. Susan was born. I wasn't born in '63. She was born in '61, and at 1 year old, she got encephalitis, severe brain damage. My father didn't graduate from high school, and she went to Yale New Haven Hospital, good hospital, and becomes severely brain damaged. I mean, Sister Susan lived to 40. The tongue's hanging out, the drool. She's leaning over. She's crippled. She's in her chair. She never spoke a word. And sometimes you could see things in her eyes, and I feel like I tell you, Vic, the more I tell this story, sometimes I feel like it didn't happen, but it did. I mean, it just did. I got to tell it. So she had a green leather wheelchair, and we would go into the grocery store. Now you got to realize Susan was looked like Sanford and Son. She was like, she's got the head down and the drool's coming out. Now I'm 5 years old. My old man, no high school education, working his ass off, 2 jobs. I used to go down with him. I want to tell you about that in a minute. And we go to the grocery store, and I remember, and I was everybody at the company. Nobody believes me, but except for my family. All my cousins know this. I didn't talk till I was 18. I was a very nice kid. I didn't say anything. I watched. But I go to the grocery store, and I'm pushing her. I'm the guy behind. I'm about 5 years old. I'm pushing it down. And the look of disdain and sometimes disgust. People are nice, not all of them. The look of disgust with the drool and the throw up on the thing. Yeah. And I'm telling you, Vic, even to this day, I'm 62 years old. To this day, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It leaves scars, man.
And I don't lead with it. I don't, I don't think I'm a bad guy. I don't, I'm not over the top. But I'm like, inside of me, I'm like, I'll show you.
Yeah,
I'll show you. We'll get out of that. And an analog to that, my old man went from Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is not the greatest place. Or I shouldn't say that, but it's very run down. And we'd go 8 miles away to a place called Southport, Connecticut. 8 miles in Connecticut. Landed the Great Gatsby. Oh my goodness. They got the big pillars. I think they literally filmed the Great Gatsby.
Okay.
Big film. And he would do odd jobs on the weekend for these, rich people. You know what I mean? And you're right. You meet him. They're like, hey, they're like me.
Yeah.
I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I've told this story a couple of times, but I remember going with him, and it was raining one weekend. I like it was yesterday. I remember the weather, the climate, the temperature or whatever. And I went with him down the Southport, and he's, we're in the days you used to have to rake leaves. We didn't have leaf blowers, and I helped him all day. And there was mud, and there was rain, and he's got the mud caked around his wedding band. And I'm in this old 1963, I think, Ford pickup truck, hole in the floor. And I would look down. I'm 5 years old. I'm looking down at the floor, look through the floor in the hole. And there's like you could see in the day they did the gravel, but it had the stones in it. And I'd see them going by. And I remember my father, Vic, the guy's like 30 years old,
Yeah.
And driving down that road with the wet, he's got the dirt caked around there. And every time I've been in a jam in my life, and I've been in many jams, I don't even have to. I always think about that. I'm like, so I remember that day working in Southport, Connecticut, and it's raining, and there's mud crusted around his wedding band, and I'm in a 63 Ford pickup truck, hole in the floor. I'm looking down. I'm 5. I'm 5 years old. And I'm looking down at the floor and into the road as it goes, and it was in the days in the pavement where there were like the bigger stones, and you could see him going by. And I remember the exhaustion, Vic. He's 30 years old. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, and he's raking people's leaves and cleaning out their gutters. I'm like, oh, not glorious work, right? And to this day, even now, when I'm facing adversity or setbacks and, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't start a tech company unless you got $1 million, I don't say anything, but I'm like, I'm going to do it. And so the lever for me is that scarcity, and that can be used for positive things and negative things.
Indeed.
And but you know what I mean? What makes someone, I'm always fascinated. Like, I don't know you, but like, what makes them tick and what makes them, but the best entrepreneurs I've met, and I've met the best ones in the world, have something that's driving them.
I'm going to tell you two stories, and I'm going to really give first a lot of credit to my dad and my grandfather. And I'm listening a lot while you're telling this story, and I'm thinking about, and I'm connecting dots on, how was it that 19 I went to Why Not Me? Like, what seeds were planted before then? Because I didn't wake up at 19.
Right.
I think what happened was, my grandfather was an immigrant of Italy, came here in 1915, 14 years old, 3 weeks on a boat, right onto a fruit and vegetable stand. Went right to work, taught himself trades, wound up working on stage as a carpenter, building sets, doing things. And then as he was having a family, wanted to create some stability in his life. So he became a superintendent of pretty decent sized apartment buildings.
Right.
Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I grew up in these apartment buildings. So the building I spent most of my time was on East 14th Street in the Midwood section of Brooklyn. Yeah. And my grandfather was responsible for the day-to-day care of the building. And that might mean fixing something in an apartment, doing something in the basement, working on the boiler. I was a young kid. It was 1970. I was 6 years old. And Vittorio, right, because my grandfather had broken English, went everywhere with him. And so he put tools in my hand. And he never worried about me ruining something, breaking something, getting hurt. Right. Like those things wouldn't happen. Oh, the back in the day in New York, these buildings had incinerators and the garbage would be burned. Yeah, right. And what was left, glass and bottle, would be raked into cans. Yeah. I was 6, 7 years old running the incinerator. Right. Like, any child labor law that exists today, my grandfather be in prison. Yeah. But what so then you take that, fast forward that to like, we move out of New York. My dad buys a house in New Jersey, about an hour and a half away. One of the first to buy a home in his family. And my dad's got a great workshop. He's got more tools. My dad was also like a closet mechanic. He had a white collar job during the week, and his side hustles were always blue collar jobs. Sure. Air conditioning, refrigeration business, mechanic on Saturdays at a gas station, fixed all his own cars. And so I had full access to the tools. Create, do, create, do, create, do. Never worried about messing anything up. Never worried about having a perfect plan. Yeah, I get it. Just go in and do these things. And so when I start thinking about the opportunity to learn from these people who just maybe believe I can do things, right? Like I didn't have a formal education around certain things. Right. They could teach me. I could teach myself. I was very fortunate. I also knew about coming through, but because I was so young, I came from this spot, Brian, where I wanted to make the men in my life proud of me. Right. And I wasn't going to let them down. Like my grandfather gave me a lot of accolades. I wanted to make him proud. My dad gave me a lot of leeway and accolades. I wanted to make him proud. I felt like for me, my why was like, I came accustomed to getting these accolades, and I just wanted more. Right. Now here's the cautionary tale. I've never told this on the podcast, so I'm going to let it rip here. I was always the head down, no matter what's bothering me, nothing's bothering me. Run forward, run into the gravel, run into the fire. Oh, the problem, just like I can grind through it. Yeah. 1998, my mom is diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And pretty much, the doctors, we get her up to Sloan Kettering in New York. They tell us, based upon the medicine we have today,
Right.
the survival rate of 3 years is pretty max. But you never know.
Yeah.
Right? We'll see where God steps in, what happens. Other than that, we think she's got 3 years.
I get it.
And Brian, almost to the day, she made it 3 years, went through all the different versions of medication, did all the suffering, did all this stuff. She passed on a Wednesday. I was there. We had the funeral on a Friday. So we made arrangements on a Thursday. We had the funeral. We had the viewing on a Friday. It was closed casket. And then on Saturday, we had the burial. And Saturday after the burial, we had a little luncheon, and it was over. On Saturday, on the way home from the funeral home or from the cemetery, I called a guy I knew who had access to a lot of laborers. And I knew they did landscaping. They did a bunch of stuff. And at the time, I had a house. It was the first house I had bought in 2001. It was on 1.25 acres. And I needed more mulch than you could possibly imagine. I was chopping some trees down, and I called up and I said, how many guys do you have that want to work tomorrow? What I said, I can get 25 yards or some crazy amount of mulch dumped on the driveway, but I need guys. And I ground myself into the ground working on the yard on Saturday, on Sunday rather. And on Monday I went to work. Okay. I just, put it down. And there's a metaphor that came from this. We'll just mulch over it. And I ground and I just put it all behind me. It happened. It wasn't, but I was there for the death of my mother, Brian. I was in the room when it happened. It's just not anything a son should really see.
Yeah.
And a month later, we were working on a very late project in the office, and I was walking very fast. It was like 8:30 at night. And all of a sudden it hit me and I couldn't breathe, and I dropped to one knee. I had not taken the time for myself, for self-care, to mourn losing my mother, to mourn the tragedy that happened to my family, to take a minute, because it was like, I'm going to show the world and I'm going to get through this. And, and I was mad. Like, why does the greatest woman in the universe get sick and get cancer like this and not get a shot, and other people do? And of course, I was questioning a lot of things. So the cautionary tale is that you've got to have desire. You've got to have the discipline. But you also have to have a slight little rein on when you're driving this thing into a brick wall and you're about to sort of, maybe not harm yourself, but cause yourself some stress and anxiety and things in your life that you might not realize you're dealing with now, but you're going to deal with down the road.
Right. I get it.
It's a tough spot to be in. And I learned my lesson, me in my company today, and I'm sure in yours, Brian, we're still driving hard. We're still in the game. We're still in the hustle. We still try to do the best we can for our customers and our employees every single day. My business partner is great. Despite 24 years of success, he still flips seat cushions on the 30th of the month for sales. He's the consummate sales guy. He's amazing. But, he'll tell you through my influence and my other business partner, Tim's, like he has tuned himself in the last 8 years because he was such a hard driver. For me, we've turned the gears because this guy is nonstop. So there's been a nice harmony there. So I only wanted to bring that story in just to say, drive is great. Discipline is, to me, it's the secret ingredient. You've got desire and you install discipline, because if you don't have discipline and you can have all the desire in the world, you've got to do the work.
Yes.
Mike Tyson always says, you got to do the stuff you hate like you love it.
Yeah.
True. Right? You have to get up as an entrepreneur. You got to have your system. You got to go. I love your concept and you bringing in the why, because knowing your why makes everything worth it. Yes. Makes everything worth it. Because if you're doing it with no why, you're just like floating around there. Like, what am I even doing? Why am I killing myself over this stuff?
Last. Yeah. And you'll quit.
Not going to last. You will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What was it like for you to decide to sell Sageworks? How did that come about? When did you decide to do that?
Oh man, I haven't thought about this. I haven't been asked about it. Well, where's the truth? I just have to go to the truth.
Yeah.
We had gotten into selling the banking software, and I woke up, listen, you know this, as you're building a company, there's always daily struggles. You got personnel issues. When you start getting above 100 employees or 200 or whatever it is, you're dealing with a lot of legal issues. You're dealing with HR issues and employees. And I'm like, ooh, that's not why most entrepreneurs start. But I have to say, and I mean this with all deference to my previous companies, selling banking software makes me want to take a nap. I mean, it's a great sleep aid. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it just wasn't like for me. Wasn't turned on by it. Even the laundromats, I wanted to bring a better laundromat experience to the inner city women who, those laundromats are terrible. They're dirty. They're not attended. They're not well lit. And the mission was, let's bring a good laundromat experience, even when I was 20, into the inner cities, right? Sageworks, let's help every small business person in the world. As we drifted away from that, Vic, to helping the banks, and the banks are great. I guess we need them most times. But basically, it was like, man, what am I doing here? So I'm one of these guys. I like money. I do. I like money. I like to go fishing on a boat.
You don't have to apologize for that one.
Yeah, and you got all those guitars. Hey, that costs money, right? But it's not the primary thing. I got to wake up and say, hey, man, how are we going to change the world in something that's exciting? And so that's when I realized I needed to get out.
Cool. How long did it take you to sell that company?
Not long. It was cash flow positive, good financial metrics, good people, good systems. And when the guys came in, the PE guys, I'm like, I know you got to look under the hood. I know I went to business school with all you guys. You got to check all the numbers and all the wires and transmission, but it's a good car, and it was a great car, but it wasn't long, maybe 6 months, maybe roughly to close.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on the exit, because the amount of stories where people sell are few and far between. I just had the good pleasure of being in a room last week at a private equity company in Chicago where they brought together about 18 different business owners from all walks, a bakery company, a pest control, company, and great stories of companies that have gone from 1.8 million in revenue to 700 million in revenue, and everything in between, 2 to 4, 2 to 10, 10 to 30, and they have a formula. So I've seen the entrepreneurs that have sold, what they've gone through, how long it's taken, and really a bit of you, as much as you didn't want that banking identity anymore for 20 some odd years, you had this identity of being in the fight.
That's the truth. And I will tell you this, just not to be crass, but it was a good day, man. I gotta say this. I hope this is on video, but it's a good day when you're in your bank account and you're like refreshing and refreshing and refreshing, and all of a sudden,
and then it comes.
The money, I'm like, wow.
And then it comes, and you're like, holy cow!
Yeah,
there's a quarter of a century right there.
Yeah, and it's like, man, it's real. There's nothing like cash for reality. So that was great, but I miss the guys there. I always tell the guys, I'm like, man, I don't know. I feel like I sold my family. There's about 20 guys there who I love. I literally love them, and I get emotional seeing them. It's hard for me to see them. So that's the one thing that I didn't realize, like just the family thing that you build. And so we've created at LiveSwitch, Vic, and we've got a bunch of great guys, and we pulled over a bunch of guys from Sageworks. So cool. Yeah. So
tell us all about LiveSwitch. We hinted at it at the top of the hour, but I know some about it, and I want everybody to know more about it. I love what you're doing, by the way. I think this is really cool.
This is what I always do worse. I always have the people at the company say, talk about the company. You're on this thing for an hour. You got to talk about the company. So I'm not a pitch man, but I love what we're doing at LiveSwitch. We have a video SDK. We have video applications. But here's the thing. Our video applications are built for one thing. We want to help every single service business in the world to technology enable them to compete. So we've got a bunch of products. I'm back to small business again. To weaponize the entrepreneurs in the world, and I mean the world. We're in like 10 countries right now, every single state, and to give them the video technology tools that they could use to compete with the big guys. So I'm back on mission now. So I love my company, and it's been, It's always interesting. You're trying to change a culture and all that.
Yeah.
Company, but yeah, that's what we want to do. And we have very specific applications that help, in particular, home service businesses. So that's that's the lifeblood of this country. We've got 26 million businesses, probably like 18 to 19 million. They're not tech businesses. They are plumbers. They're electricians, HVAC people. They will cut your tree. They will cut your lawn. They will install your sod. They will do your pool maintenance. They will build a barn for you. And I want to technology enable those guys, because those are the last vestige of the American entrepreneurial forefront.
Totally.
If we don't help them, oh my goodness. You don't want a country with 5 banks like England has. You don't want a country with 4 law firms. We got to help the vast majority of our entrepreneurs, because that's where the jobs are being created. And that's my passion.
Let's skip down the day in a life of a service person who has LiveSwitch available to them. And let's choose, you mentioned the plumber.
Yes.
Tell me about the experience a plumber has, or an owner of a plumbing business has, while they use LiveSwitch.
Yeah. Good question. So let me take a different example. Let's say that you're a painter, whatever.
Okay, fine.
You're the painter, and I'm the person who you want to get as a customer. In the day, and still happens today, you would come out, you do your measurements, you would do all this other stuff, and you would give me an estimate. What we do is allow you, Vic, to send me a text message. I click on it and walk you through the house, walk you through everything that needs to be painted. And, we're taking measurements and all this kind of stuff. And then instead of you having to drive out and waste your gas, okay, and instead of the customer having to most customers, they don't want to meet with the service people. They just want to, basically the video gets taken, it gets put in your video library. So you got a before and you got an after. You got a whole library. It's like a Dropbox. You got all your videos, and you can do a virtual estimate, give the person a price. But here's the key. Here's the key about business. Why I love LiveSwitch. We increase your bottom line. We're going to help you increase your sales, because if you don't have to drive out and meet me, you can go do 5 other estimates. So that's right. Yeah.
That's huge.
That's one product, by the way. It's one product. Yeah.
So when I'm the customer, I receive this link in a text. Am I guided through walking through the house, or am I given instructions explicitly what to do? How does that work?
Good question. So you're the landscaper. I'm the person who wants to get some landscaping done.
Okay.
You're going to send it to me, and you're going to say, show me the sod, walk around to the back of the yard, blah, blah, blah. And all those video images are going to get stored up in separate video files and get stored for you. So that's kind of how that works.
I'm walking you through it real time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. You are on the live video call with me.
Hey, let me see the right side of the yard from the street facing. Okay, great. Yes. Perfect. Okay, let's swing around to the left. Oh, you got a whole hedgerow there. You want those trimmed? Yes. Yeah, I do. Great. Okay. Let's walk all the way across to the other side. So I'm doing a virtual inspection, so to speak.
Bingo.
Yeah. Okay.
And as importantly, and it really is important, all those video files are being stored in a library for you, where if you get into conflicts or before and after, whatever, you've got documentation like Dropbox, so you can always refer back to those video files. I have to say, it's so solicitous, but it's a great product, and it's doing very well.
So you mentioned the video and measurements. Is it rendering measurements in real time?
Well, we're not quite there.
Okay.
Not quite there. But we're just about to launch AI into this stuff, so it'll give all the measurements and everything else, and it will store all those measurements and we're starting to implement AI now. So we're doing it, but we're not quite where we need to be with that. But yeah.
That's super cool. It's funny, and I'm smiling because I already know the use case is fantastic for this product, by the way. Because I always wondered, with all the service people that have come to my home over the years, wouldn't it be amazing if they didn't have to come that first time?
Yeah, that's right.
Brian, I live in a golf course. I'm a blessed guy, okay? I take a few window hits a couple times a year.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You know, I've been here 18 years.
Yeah.
15 windows. Okay,
Right.
there's one a year, and it's usually the spring.
Yeah.
And they scull me out of the bunker, and I get lucky, and some window gets hit.
Yeah.
My wife's on a first name basis with the glass company. Okay. Oh, hey, Mrs. Pepe, how you doing? Yeah, okay. They send somebody out.
Right.
They measure. They go back. There's one company in Dallas. No matter which glass company you call, it's a double pane glass with the aluminum edge and the gas filter. There's one company that makes this stuff. They all buy it from the same guy.
Right.
Okay. And depending on the markup and the service, you come back and they install it. I said to the guy, hey, the next time your guy comes out, have him measure. Take a picture of the back of my house.
I know.
Measure every single window and number them 1 through N, whatever that is. And when I call you, I'm going to say 16, 2, 1, 3. Like, you're going to save yourself gas, time, hourly and you maybe, I don't know, maybe don't charge me less.
Yeah.
Whatever, but
yeah.
Or maybe charge me less, but dude, you're killing yourself.
And get the window there faster too. Yeah.
And get it there faster. Still haven't got the glass company to do that, by the way. Yeah, Still haven't gotten them to do that.
Well, the ROI for that's just tremendous. And a lot of times, as you know, you don't need an exact measurement to give people a price range. So
yeah,
it just saves gas. And by the way, you know, service people, as you know, I mean, I used to be one. They think the customer loves to see them and talk to them about the window. The customer just wants their window fixed. So
totally,
everybody wins. Yeah.
Yeah. I rarely need a price because I've been getting windows from you forever. So I trust you now.
Yeah.
I just need a window because I threw a piece of cardboard over the broken window.
Yeah, I get it.
On the other side, the guy who's been doing the landscaping at our home, he never has to come here. I mean, his crew comes on a weekly basis, but I'll go around with a video.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, hey, you know, I want to do this to the front. I want to do this to the back. Can we refresh this? Can you remulch all the beds? And I send the video.
Yeah.
And he's
by
like,
the way, we have that capability too. We call it async video.
It's great.
We give them some instructions and tell them what to do, and they can just send it to us whenever they want to.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you're doing in the service industry is fantastic. And I think you've got the ability, if you can save 50% of that time just to get there and do these estimates.
Yes.
I can think of 50 things that I've done where the guy's shown up and I'm like, hey, dude, it's nice you're here.
I know.
But like, you know, I know how to work a tape measure, and I know you want to trust your own measurements in most cases. But in some cases, I'm painting 50 feet of fence.
Yeah.
If it's 52 or 49, nobody's going to lose on that deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're bringing it up a notch. We're doing the measurements. We're going to do the AI. We're going to do an AI report. And, you know, even things like, I mean, it's sort of super weird stuff, man, but it's just like, you know, you're on the phone, a live call with the customer, and it'll interpret, hey, is this customer a difficult customer? Are they real nice? And, or if they want this, they want that. And we're going to give them all that. So,
you know, on the iPhone, there's a measure app. Works actually pretty well.
Right.
Are you leveraging any of that technology? That kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're using all that. And
that's so cool.
We do live calls, which is incredibly complicated technology. But yeah, we're building all that in. And our renewal rate is very high, unlike Sageworks, where, a lot of promise for the company. Hey, Vic, going back to the early part of the show, still a lot of work, though. Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm working a lot. I don't know how many hours a week. So it's a grind. It's not easy. There's
a difference between this conversation and the former one, though.
Yes.
You're smiling a lot on this one.
Oh, really?
Like when the banks, like you love the initial seed, and I'm just giving you like a replay.
Yeah.
And there was all this sparkle, and then the banking and compliance and legal and HR. Yeah. Like I could see you starting to grimace a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
But it's like a flower that's been watered again. Now that you're talking about LiveSwitch. Like I could see the entrepreneurs back.
Vic, here's the thing. Why? Because I love small businesses, and I love people who work with their hands, and they pulled a broom and they've mopped the floor and they've fixed a window. Those are our kinds of people.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. That's my background.
How do people get in touch with LiveSwitch?
LiveSwitch.com is our LiveSwitch.com is the website. If they want to reach me directly, I'm easy to find. I'm at Brian at Brian, BRIAN, at brianhamilton.org. And I have a foundation all about helping entrepreneurs. So you can reach us either way. But
that's good. Hey, would you mind closing with us and giving us a little about your foundation? Like talking about that. I think your giving back is great, and I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, let me go from an elevator pitch.
Okay.
We have a problem with wealth inequality in this country. Anybody who says that's not accurate, they don't know what they're talking about. It's very dangerous historically. If you look at civilizations the last 500 years, we're all a level playing field. Bullshit. Not true. But the solution to that is what matters. We teach people how to fish. We teach people how to start businesses, how to build wealth through owning things. And that's what the Brian Hamilton Foundation does. And a derivative of that is Inmates to Entrepreneurs, where we help people who have been in prison to start their own businesses. But if we don't get more people in this country owning things, we're in trouble, man.
We're going to be in big trouble, man.
Revolutions and, people build resentment. Listen, I'm from Milford, Connecticut. People in Milford, blue collar, everybody worked at Sikorsky and Avco and all that. If we don't get more people owning things, we're going to foster all this resentment, rightfully. But here's the solution. We don't need the government. We need to teach people how to fish. And that's my passion.
Yeah, I love where you ended there because, well, I can open up a can of worms here. Let's just say I love your last statement, and I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Let's get people feeling like $1 million and making their own $1 million.
Yes.
Teaching them how to do it, help them go on the pathways. And some need more help than others, but you just need willingness.
Vic, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Before we go say, okay, we're going to raise teacher pay by 3%. People are going to bitch and complain about it. And we're going to educate people who can go get better jobs. No, the way to build wealth in this country, by the way, I'm 25% Sicilian.
How are you? Okay.
Nobody ever knows that because just the way I look. But it's actually true. My grandfather was from Sicily. But people come to this country for opportunity. They come to this country to own. They start working at that fruit stand, that vegetable stand where your grandfather was, and they start owning their businesses. We got to get more owners.
100%. I agree. Brian, this has been a real fun hour and a quarter, and I really appreciate you coming on. I'd like to have you back maybe toward the summertime, and we'll get an update on LiveSwitch, and we'll talk more about these topics.
Hey, Vic, don't leave yet. I got a question. Yeah. Where are you physically located?
I'm in the Dallas area.
Oh, I'm in Texas. I thought you were in Nashville. I'm going through Nashville.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, not. Where are you? What area are you?
We can jam together, but you're better than I am.
I don't know that I'm better. I'm a little rusty these days. They look better on the wall than they do in my hands.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thanks so much, Brian. I really, really enjoyed this hour. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Good stuff, brother.
Take care. Bye. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.